what drives you in the work that you're now doing with parents?
I want parents to take responsibility for this issue, right? And stop deferring to therapy and outsourcing and thinking that someone else is going to fix it.
Well, good afternoon for you, Nicole Runyon in Detroit, Michigan.
Good afternoon. It's good to meet you.
Thank you for your time with me. Just to know, if I look to the side, it's because I have all these notes I've prepared.
Okay.
So I'm not ignoring you. I'm just going to look to the side.
I thought you might have two monitors or something going on.
No, it's just this big computer in front of me and looking back and forth from you and the camera to the notes. My goal is to talk to you about parenting responsibility and what we put on parents to raise healthy children. But within that, saying that is not politically correct, at least where I'm from. I've had a lot of hate on that. I've been told it's a blame game, and you and I have both been vocal. So I want to just dig in today of the parenting responsibility, but also the political correctness of that and the responses that we're getting. Yeah. Anything that you want to see out of that in our interview?
Yeah, absolutely. I have the same experience. I think what you mentioned with the blame game is really a result of a cultural shift that we're in right now, where there's a lot of victimhood and not a whole ton of personal responsibility.
Yeah. Oh, we're going to dig right into that. But let's first talk about you.
Yeah. Cool.
So your book is Free to Fly, The Secret to Fostering Independence in the Next Generation. You are a psychotherapist, a parent coach, you are a keynote speaker. Tell me about you. What do you want to add to all of that?
Well, I was a child psychotherapist for about 20 years, and now I'm not.
Okay.
And the reason for that is related to our conversation about parents. What I saw in my practice over the years has been extreme mental health, symptoms that I'm seeing in children that are not rooted in anything psychosocial. There's no known trauma in the cases that I was dealing with. Parents were there and loving and supportive. Families were mainly intact. It's not to say that there weren't things to work on, but certainly not to warrant the level of mental illness that I was seeing. I mean, I was getting adolescent girls coming out of the hospital after their first suicide attempt. And so I had to sort of look at like those underlying root causes because traditional therapy wasn't working. And what I've come to find out is that our parents today are more interested in being their kids' friends. They're more permissive. They're afraid of their kids. They're afraid to say no. They don't want the reaction. They don't want to experience their children's disappointment or any kind of discomfort whatsoever. We really are in a comfort crisis. And it's affecting our children in a way that I just don't find to be okay at all. And it was feeling unethical to be in this position to pathologize them, to point the finger at them, scapegoat them, put them in treatment, medicate them for really simply an environmental issue that they're just reacting to. I call them the canaries in the coal mine, right?
I was on a psych unit, so I watched a lot of medicating happen. But what drives you? Like underlying factors that drive you in the work that you're now doing with parents?
I want parents to take responsibility for this issue, right? And stop deferring to therapy and outsourcing and thinking and I think our education system has responded to that by saying, oh yeah, sure, we'll fix it. We got this, parents. And frankly, they don't, and they're making it worse. So I want parents to know that they're the first line of defense. And it's not to say that we can't have an outside community. We absolutely need that. We need the village. We need our education system to be on board with the parents. We need therapists to be on board with the parents. But ultimately, the paradigm needs to be flipped back onto the parents, that we have control. We are the ones that are responsible. We're the leaders of our families and of our children, and then we set the tone for the outside world, and that's how cultural shift happens.
You were like perfectly setting into the next thing I wanted to get to. Before we dig in more about this whole parenting phenomenon and responsibility and the backlash, I want to go back to the very first time that you and I connected on LinkedIn, and you've just like brought right into it. You did a post, and by the way, I think it's one of your most successful posts. You had a lot of comments on that one, and I'm like, wow, huge response on that. And I really respected you being bold on this. You said, why do schools feel they must be responsible for social emotional learning? That should be left to parents Most children don't need it from school, often. It tells us parents that we are not enough, and it gives an institution a false sense of power. I read that and I hit the roof inwardly from my experience. So I copied this all from our post. I said, I need to put in my 2 cents because this raises my energy levels. And I said, the reality is that not all kids have the home support that every child should have. Kids spend 15,000 hours, this is research based, in schools from kindergarten to grade 12. And I said, whether we like it or not, or we agree with it or not, schools are positioned to do more than algebra and verb conjugation. This is not a false sense of power. This is the reality of meeting intrinsic human needs for support, understanding, and care that every child not only wants, but deserves. This is our first interaction. And what'd you think of that? Of my response and that whole thing?
Well, first of all, I appreciated that you, even though you were angry by what I posted, you were professional and reasonable, because that post caused a lot of controversy and people came after me. I actually had to block someone because she was threatening me.
Oh, gosh. Really?
So yeah,
wow.
So like I appreciate discourse, right? I understand that there are lots of sides to an argument, and I am happy for people to disagree with me, and I am perfectly able to have that conversation. And I appreciated the way that you said what you said, and I agree with you. I think 100% there are families and children who do not support what children need. Mm-hmm. And the school is positioned to help those kids. But what's happened is the education system has built in social emotional learning to the curriculum to make it an overall policy that they think that it's necessary to ask all children how they feel every day, right. To, in my opinion, overstep into children's lives whose families can do that for them, who mm-hmm. are positioned to do that for them, who yep. have the resources to do that. And those are the parents I'm speaking to. I'm sure. Speaking to the parents who know how to show up, who are loving and supportive and want to help their kids. They're just misguided because they think that therapy or the school counselor or whatever is actually better positioned than they are. And I fully disagree with that. I think parents are in a better position to, in a sense, counsel their kids than I am. Mm-hmm. Because mm-hmm. you, as the parent, know your child better than me. You're the expert for your child. And I think this deference to, like, experts or white coats that they know more than parents is just insane to me. And I want parents to get that power back.
I could not agree with you more on that. And I mean, you and I have had conversations after this that I am your number one agreeing, advocate of this starts at home. I've had hate because I say that this is number one. But my background's on a psychiatric unit, and my doctoral research was at the psych unit. I had 25 kids. I asked questions for a full year of what did you need from educators as your mental health deteriorated and your substance use increased to get to us as an inpatient unit. One of the things I found that was resounding through my research is the high level of facade that kids put on and the extent of what comes in that we have no idea. And one thing that I found is, anecdotally, kids that have higher trauma go to school and they can be normal and the facade's greater because nobody knows and I can hide it. Mm-hmm. So where I was coming from with that is we actually have no idea. And I was shocked stories I heard of what was happening behind closed doors that nobody at school knew about. And what my advocacy is, we don't know what we don't know. And at schools, I had one student who had been at my elementary school, and I had him at my psych ward later, that his dad had been beating him black and blue and we had no idea. And another girl alcoholic mom, and she ended up with me also from that elementary school over to my psych unit 5 years later. She didn't know what it was like to be tucked in to bed by mom because she was an alcoholic. So she'd come to school and we were the safe place where the parents weren't doing what we thought that they should do. But the problem is we don't know who that is. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's
my quandary.
Yeah, that is a quandary. I see that side of it. And certainly, I think that a school with that level of understanding can address that without having to have across-the-board social emotional learning for all kids. Yeah. And for the majority of kids, frankly, who don't need it. And the way we could do that is by funding, I think, more of, the awareness around two things. One, there is help in place. All schools have some type of school counselor. Whether or not there's enough of them, they're at least available. And what I see happening is the kids who don't need it are taking up space in the counselor's offices,
right.
avoiding school, avoiding hard things because their parents aren't making them do hard things at home, even though they're positioned to.
Right.
And then that's leaving the space unavailable for kids who actually need it. That's happening in a school setting. It's also happening in the mental health setting as well. So we need to really be able to help support. So this is the second part of what I think needs to happen. We need to support the parents who are available, who want to help their kids. We need to support them and educate them as to how. So we leave the space open for kids to come to counseling offices who, otherwise wouldn't. And we help the kids understand that that's available to them, but, we do it in a subtle, gentle way that doesn't make every kid think that going to the counselor's office is the answer.
I couldn't agree more. I did an interview a few months ago about the contagion effect of destigmatizing mental health. And now I've got anxiety and you've got anxiety. And there's a contagion effect that I'm really concerned of as we talk more about mental health and destigmatizing, because all of a sudden it's almost normal, debilitating anxiety. Everybody has this. It's kind of cool. And no, it's not. And so that's another quandary I have within this, is that it is very possible that more and more kids pick this up because we're talking about it. We see other kids diagnosed for ADHD, whatever that is, versus the authentic, situations that maybe do warrant the diagnosis.
That's right. Yeah. And something else we can do is, if we're not so hyper-focused on all the kids that are going through this contagion effect, then we have the space to be able to learn about and notice the warning signs of those kids you're talking about that are experiencing trauma but not talking about it. Because if we know what to look for, we can see it.
But here's the problem: is I will tell you, as an educator, I'm off this year to launch this brand, but would be 28 years. Is we are in crisis. I now call the classroom a triage situation. That is a term usually for ER, and so I'm finding here that teachers are so maxed out, they're actually not choosing to learn about mental health because they just want to get by, and AI will help me, and how do I deal with assessment and curriculum? So unfortunately, I find that teachers are less and less positioned to actually know those signs. Our counselor ratios here, like both Canada and US, the suggested recommendations is one counselor for 250. That's enormous. We've got up to 1 to 800 here in BC.
Wow.
It's like a lifeguard with 1,000 people in front of you, and it's supposed to be 50. Like it's just, they can't do what they're supposed to be doing as counselors, and the teachers are so maxed out. They're not, I think, doing the learning that we need to spot these things.
Yeah, 100%.
That's the problem.
Yep, I agree fully. And I think a big part of that is that we're rushing to answer this by addressing it from like a mental health perspective in the school. And that is what is being funded. Let's face it, right?
Yeah,
That's where the money's going.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nicole, my findings, like, what did you need? No frameworks, no SEL worksheets, no programs. It all came down to a person in front of me who leaned in, and my findings were so basic. You know what, we all need this. If I think of any crisis in your life, I need it to be supported, understood, and cared for. It all comes down to that, and that all comes down to connection. And we're, I think, systemizing things and, programming things and frameworking things. And my advocacy in schools is, let's talk about just creating those spaces, because I don't know what I don't know, and I don't know who's getting beaten at home, and I don't know who has the trauma, and and even if you can spot the indicators, the school is not positioned to really dig into that.
I really think that we need a lot more resources put towards parent education, and even parents who we wouldn't we tend to dismiss, like the parents who are substance abusers or causing their children trauma. I mean, we shouldn't be dismissing them. We should be offering them help and guidance and education on how to take care of their children, or what help that they need to do that.
For sure. Absolutely. Okay, now let's shift gears then. Moving from our LinkedIn conversation, we're going more into now this very politically incorrect statement that this starts at home. And these kids, it starts at home. And side comment, on that psychiatric unit, I had hundreds of kids. I was there for 5.5 years until they closed us. I want to say very generously that 3% came from homes that were like, wow, it's healthy. It's functioning. You feel loved and you feel unconditionally loved and you feel supported and you have family time. 3% is generous. So I want to talk about, first of all, why do you think there's so much backlash when we say that child well-being starts at the home from day one of birth?
Well, I know we've talked about this. It's this idea that it's called the blame game, where it's people feel like it's offensive. It's pointing the finger at the parents, saying the parents are wrong. They're doing something wrong. And I think culturally we just don't allow for that anymore. We have now created these safe spaces where we can't offend anyone, and we have to, make everybody comfortable all the time. And I just think that's extremely unrealistic. Like, life isn't comfortable, and we all have to be able to work through that. And whatever causes us pain or discomfort is our personal stuff, right? Like, if I get cut off on the highway and I don't react because I don't have an issue with people, railroading me, then that doesn't mean that somebody next to me isn't going to get highly triggered by that and react and experience road rage. But I would say that, like, that's a personal thing. That person experiencing road rage has issues with people taking advantage of them.
Sure, totally.
And you were going to say
I
something.
wonder if a lot of this started with this culture of not wanting our kids to fail. You give a participation ribbon to every single person that shows up to sports day now, and that aligns with the inability, or I don't know, that's not the best word, the hesitation then to also ask for accountability.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I think that started with the millennial generation.
Yeah.
So we think that it's going on with our current kids, but this has been going on for decades.
Absolutely.
And I actually think what happened, here's my theory,
Yeah.
is that the millennials were really the first to be exposed more to technology than any generation prior to them. They were on AOL Instant Messenger to socialize, so they weren't socializing in person and gaining some of those skills that you and I gained. They were, the gaming was more sophisticated, so it became more addictive. They were on it for longer. And the kids, because of that, started to look less capable, and the parents didn't know what hit them. They didn't know why the kids were less capable. Their reaction to that was to do more for them, to make them comfortable, to make them happy, because that is when participation trophies came on the scene.
Right. Yeah. It's totally. I think it's totally aligned.
Yeah. And I think that now that we have, again, generations of this, we aren't really aware of what it is we're doing. And we're really doing a huge disservice to the kids because, frankly, they could see right through the participation trophies. It doesn't make it good.
They totally do. Listen, I've been there watching them give it. They see it. This is ridiculous. This is so stupid, is what I get from them. Can you talk to me in a little bit more detail now about the influence of parents and of the home in that child development, wellness, and solid mental health?
Yeah, so child development works like the rungs of a ladder. Each stage builds on the one before it. So everything is just very foundational, starting from birth, going all the way through 25 when a child's brain is fully developed. So what that means is that parents are not going to be perfect in every stage. Totally not. You're going to make mistakes. And that doesn't mean that if you make mistakes, the child can't get to the next stage. They absolutely can. It might be a little challenge, might be a little hiccup. There's going to be some pain and difficulty in your parenting during that time, but it can be done. So the parent influence is super important because we instinctually know what our kids need and when we need it. And if we are out of our connection and out of our grounding in ourselves, then we are going to lack the ability to pick up more on what they need. And what's happening when we don't do that with our kids today is that they're missing too much in their development. So while parents are always going to make mistakes in certain stages and it's going to be a challenge to grow, now what we're finding is that the mistakes are too big, too much for the child to get to the next stage, even if they're the correct age. And it's very powerful when parents connect to themselves and connect to their kids, because they don't need to read the parenting book, or they don't need to read the research or the psychology. They can just say, hey, my 3-year-old has no business on an iPad. My 3-year-old should actually be running and jumping and climbing and learning how to tie their shoes and, potty training and getting ready for preschool, so that they don't have separation anxiety when it's time to leave mom and dad. And our power is that. That is our power, 100%.
As a mom, and this is a teacher too, you can start really tight and have expectations, but to change those expectations and tighten them up later is nearly impossible. So as a teacher in September, my September was building relationships with my students, getting my classroom down. As a mom, my kids, like early on, it was that these are the boundaries. Because if I don't do that now when they're little, when they're 16 and they're on that iPhone and I don't have that set in place of my expectations, and this is actually the way that it is, I don't know how you even change that. It feels almost nearly impossible to go back.
Yeah. It's not, but it's so much harder. And what's happening is we're seeing these developmental milestones not be made. And then it's turning into what looks like a mental illness or a disorder.
Right,
and so
totally.
We're outsourcing that to mental health. We're outsourcing that to doctors, to therapists, to psychiatrists, to medicate. And it's causing a whole lot of chaos, because that's not the right kind of treatment.
No, I have seen a lot of diagnosing because on that psych unit, and then the work I had done in mainstream schools before that. And in my not expert opinion, personal opinion, I felt there were so many diagnoses that actually came down to what happened in the home, conditioning that happened, lack of expectations, and of course you're diagnosed with oppositional defiance disorder.
That's
because you've not learned it at home. But nobody wants to say this is actually the parents, because that's not politically correct to put that responsibility there.
Right, because it's the parents have to be, they're offended, right? They have to be hurt by that. That's painful. It's painful to realize. I mean, you and I are both mothers. Whenever I notice or am aware of a mistake I've made, oh man, that is the worst kind of pain. There's nothing worse than that. But we have to be able to work through that and get to the other side of it, so we learn and we do better.
Totally. I'm okay with regrets. People say no regrets. I actually do have regrets. I have things. If I could go back and start all over with my kids, I would do labor without an epidural on my second daughter. No drugs, okay? Baby number 2, she was 9.5 pounds. I'd start all over again, because I would do so much better, and things that I know now. And I'm okay saying that, because I think also we have to own it. Like, I need to own the mistakes and the misunderstandings I have had as a parent and as an educator, because then I do better.
That's right. And
we learn better. From That's why.
That's
Take
right.
it, stop groveling, stand up again, and learn from this and do better. And we don't do that. I don't think our society has that dialogue, and that's not our rhetoric.
No, I agree. And it's interesting, because I think we can all look at grandparents and find value in that, and recognize how important that relationship is. But the only reason that grandparents can be so influential and loving to their grandchildren is because they were parents first. And they made their mistakes.
Totally.
And they got to the other side of it. They learned from it. I call it a do-over.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, for sure. You're right. Yeah, they've learned. I'll be a way better grandparent than a parent.
Hands down.
I'm already.
Yeah.
Here's my last question before we go into our wrap-up questions that take us to the start of this interview. Tell me where you think the root of the pitfalls are on the home front. Like, what's the deep root of kids not getting what they need on the home front? What is missing?
At the very core, we're disconnected. So when we're disconnected, we often look to external factors to fill us up. And we've got a lot of them now. We have streaming TV, we can binge watch things. We have social media. We have vapes where you can, take them anywhere in public. You don't even have to go outside anymore to smoke, right? And people are putting marijuana in the vapes, so it's keeping them high all day. We have lots of ways to defer from our painful feelings from our discomfort, from things that we want to avoid, it's very easy to do now, more so than ever.
Yeah.
And when we're disconnected and we're avoiding our pain, then we can't give our kids what they need. And what they need is not for us to be their friends, not for us to make them happy, not for us to make them comfortable, for us to foster their growth and eventually their independence and their maturity. And so that's why we have things like permissive parenting and overuse of technology and a culture that doesn't allow for us to even say that without getting attacked, right? Because we are really trained to avoid comfort and connection.
I want to add, like, it's not working. Like, we now have decades to see proof it is not working.
Yes.
Our kids are, well, we have global research of mental health disorders. Now, fair enough, there's probably more diagnosing, but we know, I was just in Jordan, okay, Amman, Jordan, and the same things are happening, and concerns for technology, and kids no longer respecting parents. The list goes on and on. So I think it's kind of already tried and true that method of permissive parenting is not working.
No, and that's, I'm so glad you say that, because why aren't we learning from it? I mean, again, this participation trophy thing started with the millennials, and we keep doing it.
We keep doing it, and the kids hate it. Like, the kids hate it. They really do, because they, like you said, they see right through it. So it's almost offensive. Like, it's almost like we're thinking that you're going to buy into this, and that you're not smart enough to know this is, everybody gets this because you showed up to fun day.
Yes, absolutely. I think it is. It's saying something to them. It's saying, we don't think you're capable, and we're telling them that in our messaging. Yeah.
Okay. I always end with 3 wrap-up questions that take me kind of to the starting goals. And let's just like pull this all together. So here's number 1. What is the main responsibility that you would like parents to take over? If you could just like summarize that in a nutshell, the one thing, if you could put it on a t-shirt, that parents take responsibility for, what would that be?
For their children's development, for allowing the tasks of development to be up to the child, not for doing it for them.
Okay.
Here's number 2. Long t-shirt.
That would be a long paragraph.
Yeah.
You could do an extra large t-shirt for that. Okay, here's number 2. How can we change that lens of the blame game? Like, what's it going to take? And the idea, like, well, they've had their own trauma. I just had a LinkedIn response about, well, yeah, but what about their trauma? And I'm like, you know what? I'm actually tired of blaming your own trauma, because I've worked with kids that have been sexually assaulted, blaming the past trauma. So what does it take to change that lens and bringing in a responsibility and accountability for us adults in the room who have chosen to have children?
The saying that the wound isn't your fault, but it is your responsibility. We really need to come to that understanding as a society that, like, sure, nobody's blaming you for being abused or for having trauma in your childhood. But to your point, if you're choosing to have children because it is a choice, then you need to take responsibility for that trauma and make sure that you work on healing that.
I like that. Like, it's not your fault, but it's your responsibility. Nicole, I got tired of working with kids that have been physically, sexually abused, emotionally neglected, and hearing, like, one girl had sexual abuse from an uncle and talked about, well, what happened to his family and that generational trauma. And I'm like, at what point does that stop so we can change the script?
Yes.
And we have to take responsibility to do that, or it's never going to happen. If I keep blaming the past, it's not going to change.
That's right. I think that, the most inspirational parents I know, and my mom being one of them, are parents who, ended the cycle. That there's that generational trauma that just keeps getting passed down, and I think it takes a really resilient, strong person to say, not anymore, no more, I'm not passing this down.
I also think it requires more dialogue that this is possible. Can we stop talking about what happened and wanting restitution? And I'm not saying not to do restitution, but that we can individually stand up to the plate and have the dialogues that, maybe we could, right?
Yes. I think the mentality of, like, the collective whole and we're doing it for other people is really beautiful. But if we don't have ourselves first, then we can't do that.
Yeah.
And so when I talk about, and I hear when you talk about the individual, it's not to mean like, oh, it's all just about us and it's self-centered and it's selfish. That's the rhetoric, right? Is that we're talking about self-centeredness, but it's the opposite. It's we have to start with us first, and then that permeates onto everybody else, and then we suddenly have a culture, a community around this collective of we take responsibility for ourselves, and we also need help from other people to do that.
Yeah.
But people can't help us and be there for us if we can't be there for ourselves.
Well, and we can still be supportive in that process.
Yes.
Right? Like I can still call something and be supportive of the journey. And I think that's maybe part of the rhetoric is that those two things maybe are viewed separately. If I'm going to say it's a parent's responsibility, then I'm not acknowledging their own trauma and being supportive. And I think that those go together. They absolutely are a myriad, that I can still request, demand responsibility and accountability and still offer that support, understanding, and care in the process to that parent. Those don't have to be separate things.
Yes, absolutely. And that's my work. That's what I
Right.
do. I actually, instead of seeing the kids for therapy, I'm coaching the parents because I'm saying, yeah, it is your responsibility, but I'm here to help you, and I'm not here to judge you or make you feel bad about it.
That is how we change the rhetoric. That's how we change the script, I think, is we say, I'm here to support you as you take responsibility.
Yes.
Those are tightly entwined. And that, I wonder, is how we can change this perspective in our society of not wanting to do the blame game and asking for responsibility. And heaven forbid I say that this started on the home front.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that.
I'm all about authentic connection. Like my research, I realized all came down to finding authentic connection, how we have that. So here's my last question for you. And I know it's the work that you do. For parents listening and that you work with, what is the number one thing that parents must do to build authentic, deep-rooted connection with their kids?
They have to work on themselves. So whatever holes you have in your development, whatever you went through, even if you don't have trauma, nobody comes through their childhood unscathed. There's something. Everyone has something, right? And most of us are walking around unresolved. And even if we thought we resolved it, it tends to come up again. So just this idea that we are always a work in progress and a masterpiece at the same time.
Yeah.
And that we can't stop trying to work on ourselves and care for ourselves.
I was not expecting that answer. I love that. No, I was expecting like, spend time with your kids, ask them how they're, like these tangibles. And I think you're right. It is so powerful because we can't come to the table if we're broken.
Mm-hmm.
I can't authentically listen to you if I don't feel listened to myself, or if I've had all this baggage in front of me to authentically listen or to be understanding or caring or loving and not lose my top.
Yeah, and I don't really love giving those tips and tricks like, if you just, spend time with your kids or whatever. I mean, I'll do it because I know that's what people sometimes want. They want the quick go-to. But ultimately, in order to do those things, you have to first do the work on yourself, or you're not going to be successful doing those things.
I said, as a young teacher, I knew early on, I need a good weekend because I need to go back whole on Monday for my students. Because if I'm broken, if I'm having awful stuff on the home front, like we're all human beings.
Yeah.
And it's important to acknowledge that. So I need to walk into a class whole to be present and to lean into my students for everything to have a healthy, functional relationship in that class. And there's your connection.
That's it.
And then you automatically connect. Oh, that's good. I like that.
Yeah. And then it's kind of effortless because then you just know what to do. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Nicole Runyon, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
I was looking forward to this, getting into this after our first time meeting.
Yes, me too. This was great.
Thank you. Thanks for listening. Key point and takeaway is we need a movement of parents taking responsibility, and it is not our fault, but just owning things so that we can keep moving forward and keep giving our kids what they need. You can do something about this and share it with parents that you think want to learn about how we do this on the home front and being empowered as parents with our kids. And hey, click the little subscribe button below and you can watch my next video that's attached.